This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Mac and Jack Sports Show. Today is Friday, September 16th, and I am here with our hosts, Mac and Jack, the biggest names in sports today. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
I got to maybe start using like a middle initial or something, to distinguish myself from the rest of you guys.
Yeah.
Which initial would you use?
Well, and then middle name.
Oh, gotcha. What is your middle name?
Miles.
Oh, okay. See, I see you learn something new every day, Jack. And is it actually Jack or is it?
No, Jack. It's
okay.
A clean Jack.
Yeah,
there you go.
I can never figure out even President Kennedy. They call him Jack Kennedy, John Kennedy. What exactly was his name? I mean, I don't want to. You can't be Jack and John together. You have to have one or the other. No one ever called me John.
Well, wasn't his father named John too, and that's why they called him Jack?
They call him John F. Kennedy. Then I hear Jack Kennedy. I mean, one or the other. Give me.
Well, yeah, that's how I got my name. My name is James. My formal name is James, but everybody called me Jamie because my grandfather was named Jim. My uncle was named Jim. When you yelled out Jim, everybody turned around. So they said, "Okay, you're going to be Jamie." Plus, I'm not a Jim.
It was the same with me. My grandfather even called me Jake for some unknown reason. I don't know why, but they because I was the second. I didn't want Junior. They called me Johnny. So there you go.
Well, and there you have it. So, see, we learned something new. See, this is the type of quality entertainment that you get.
They don't want to hear about names and middle names.
Exactly. So, well, then let's get to it. The Yankees didn't play yesterday, so they didn't gain any ground or anything like that. But there was a football game.
Yeah.
So, Ted.
Big one. Speaking of the game yesterday, with the Chiefs and the Chargers, we're going to talk about the game, the way the pattern went. But after one game of the regular season, the most competitive league, a conference in the NFL, where everyone would be talking about the four teams going neck and neck, the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Raiders, and the Broncos. After just 1 week, two of the teams distinguished themselves. Already it looks like it's going to just be a two-team race. Not to dismiss the Raiders and the Broncos, but it just looks highly unlikely that they're going to keep up with the Chiefs and the Chargers. It looks like the Chiefs and the Chargers are destined to go neck and neck for the rest of the season.
You're muted, Pax. Muted. Can't hear you. Muted.
Yeah, sorry, because I had the TV blasting. All of a sudden, it just turned on. I was like, "Whoa." So I didn't want to hear. I don't want to drown you guys out. But yes, exactly. I told you guys, I thought that the AFC West was a little overrated. I thought that the Chiefs were going to run away with this and that the Chargers were going to make the playoffs, but that Denver and the Raiders were not going to be able to, keep pace. And I just don't think that they're that good of a team. Either one of them.
Yeah, but yesterday, the Chiefs winning by 3 points in a game that the Chargers could have won. You could even argue should have won, having a 10-point lead in the third quarter. And then their coach, Brandon Staley, just seemed to go conservative. When you play in Kansas City, you better stomp on them when you have the chance. Don't rely on your defense. Even though the Chargers have one of the league's best defenses, in Bosa, Khalil Mack, and company, Deontay Samuel. But the point is, they had the Chiefs down, put the hammer to them. But you have Patrick Mahomes. They get back in the game. They wondered how much he'd missed Tyreek Hill. Well, yesterday, not very much, to be honest. Kelsey, in reality, has always been his main weapon, his tight end. It's always been his comfort zone, and that continues. And now, instead of Tyreek Hill getting the bulk of the catch as a wide receiver. They'll just spread the ball around, use Kelsey as the weapon. Mahomes is very mobile. He's going to make things happen. So the Chiefs on their way to having a good year, as are the Chargers. I have a feeling it might come down to the last game of the season to see who actually grabs the Western Division title.
Yeah. I don't think it'll be that close. I think the Chiefs will win that division, and the Chargers will make the playoffs. But I don't think it's going to. I think the division that this kind of set the tone for the season, and that both of these teams are pretty good. And hopefully Herbert's not hurt that badly. I mean, obviously he did get he suffered something with his ribs. I didn't hear if it was cracked ribs or broken ribs or anything like that.
Back in the game, he seemed to have bruised his ribs, but he came back in. So it's apparently not a serious injury. You kind of wonder whether the Buffalo Bills are just keeping a small eye on these two teams, the Chiefs and the Chargers, because if someone's going to stop the Bills' run to the Super Bowl, I don't think they're overly worried what's coming out of the East with the Dolphins, the Patriots. I don't think they're overly worried about the Bengals, but they take a look at the Chiefs with their pedigree and the Chargers, a team that's really on the rise. I think those are the two teams that represent the biggest threat to keep Buffalo from going to the Super Bowl. And Pags, you picked the Chiefs to go to the Super Bowl straight out before opening game.
Yes, and I like I said, I think you're going to see a Chiefs Bills AFC Championship game, and until the Bills can get past them, like I said, they've got this mental block with the Chiefs right now that they just can't seem to get past. And until they can prove that they can get past the Chiefs, I just think that the Chiefs are going to be the class of that, the class of the AFC. And I don't think I just don't believe that Cincinnati is going to be able to come out. We saw that Joe Burrows is able to, lead his team back even after being down and even after having such a horrendous day, threw 4 interceptions that day and still was able to come back and bring it into overtime. And then, had problems with their kicker. But ultimately it's, I think that, it's going to be that you're going to see the Chiefs and the Bills, and they're going to run away with it. I think that they are going to be fighting for the number 1 seed throughout this season.
And what's up with these kickers, guys? I mean, these are supposed to be the best of the best. They're missing from up close. They just look awful this year, and they're causing their teams to lose all the time. I don't know what's going on with them this year.
Well, it's like I think this has been coming. You know what I mean? I feel that there hasn't been enough emphasis on kickers. That the kicker misses the kick, and oh well, it's like I'll make the next one, and that so. I mean, you look at Dallas. Dallas's kicker preseason. I mean, did he make any kicks? I mean, it seemed like that he was missing them left and right. So my full expectation is that when it comes to the regular season, he's going to be missing. The one from Cincinnati, I mean, that guy's supposed to be automatic, and here it is. He missed 3 field goals.
He had a new hold, a new snap. It kind of messes up a kicker's rhythm. He doesn't have the same holder. I mean, I've never attempted any type of field goal before, but I can imagine how you put the ball down, set up the laces. It has a lot to do with the placement of the ball. If the ball's tilted just a tiny bit, it kind of throws the kick off. And also the snap, if the snap comes a little high, a little low, then the holder has to frantically place the ball down quickly. I think really that does have a bearing on it because the kicker's already setting himself in motion as the ball is being snapped. And you throw the kicker's timing just off a tiny fraction of a second. I think it's all the difference it makes. But listen, with that said, Mac is correct. Even the Jet kicker Zerline, he misses a very makeable field goal. He misses an extra point. The Jets still would have lost, but they would have crept a little closer. There's nothing too much more demoralizing. You get a touchdown, and you think you're back in the game, and then you miss an extra point, and you really need that point because it could be the difference between having a 7 behind, the 8 points behind, mentally too. I think it deflates a team just a tiny bit when a kicker misses, and something as simple as an extra point.
Agree.
So here's a question for you, since this actually ties into you guys. The Giants coach decides to go for 2.
The ball, yeah.
And he goes for 2, and they make it, obviously. So, which is, it looks like an amazing call now in hindsight because he made it. However, great call.
Oh, great call. I don't know how Mac feels about it. I don't second guess later. At the time, I like to play coach, and I kept saying, "Go for 2, go for 2. This is your chance to, win the game outright." If they go for the extra point, they're down 1 point. There's still 1 minute and 6 seconds left. So Tennessee is going to get the ball back with a chance to win it. But if you go for the extra point, what Mac was saying before, the kicking sometimes has been a little erratic. You probably make the extra point, but it's not quite automatic, even though you probably make it. But let's say you do make it. Now the best you can logically do is win in overtime, and that's just 50-50 proposition. You have the chance to win the game, then you just go for it. And it sets a new culture with the Giants too. It shows a real confidence in them. You know what no one mentions, guys? I don't know whether Mac Pags, you picked up on this to play. So Daniel Jones flips it to Saquon Barkley, basically up the middle. 2 of the Tennessee defenders on the defensive line had him there. Why didn't they should have tackled Saquon Barkley. He kind of escaped Saquon Barkley. He was very stoppable. It's not like they got Saquon Barkley to the outside where he had a lot of space to maneuver. And I would be a little upset if I were Tennessee that the tackle wasn't made. But Mac has to be happy about his Giants. Saquon Barkley's reemergence. He's the Saquon Barkley of old. Yep. It's easy to say, well, one game doesn't prove it. But if you saw the way he was running, he's back to his old self. And I'm going to give Byron Williams a hard time when he comes on about Julio Jones with Tampa Bay, because I asked him, is it possible a guy in his early 30s who's been a little faded like Julio Jones, one of the all-time greats, could have a resurgence? Imagine he could be his old self again, and Brady could keep being Tom Brady. What would that mean? He says, oh, no, Julio Jones in his early 30s. You can't quite get back to what you were. Well, Julio Jones looked as good as he ever did just about in that one game. And they took a statistic and analytics. I know we might hate it to a degree, but it showed the level of speed Julio Jones showed on one play was one of the quickest routes of the weekend that anyone ran on any team.
Well, and like I said, he did have a great game. He wound up being the main receiver for Tom, I think, in that day. And, so it looked good. And obviously the Giants, since, your Super Bowl pick is still intact at the moment, the Jets probably ain't going to make it, but the Giants at least look good for week 1. They can still go 1-4 this season, but, the first win's the most important.
Yes, and they have wrapped up the division as of today, Tupac.
They didn't.
Hey, I'm going to tell you this. You can, if someone wanted to make a bet now, who's going to finish ahead of who? The Giants and the Cowboys. I mean, Cowboys still have to be favored to come ahead of the Giants. But I'm going to tell you, a lot of Giant fans, if you give them 2-1 odds or something, they'll jump on it for their team. I mean, the Cowboys seem to be reeling after 1 week. And the Giants, it's kind of like a good feel story. I think the Giants, I don't know, Matt could answer this because he's a big Giant booster. I don't feel the expectations are overly high. If the Giants do what the Jets might be projected to do this year, maybe go about 7-10, be competitive, show a lot of promise for next year. I think this is a building block year for the Giants, where next year they'll be eyeing the playoffs. Despite the great win over Tennessee, I don't think the Giants are quite eyeing the playoffs yet, because to be a wild card, you have to have a good record. And to win the division, all the other teams will have to be weak. And I don't think Philadelphia is going to tail off and have an 8-9 type season to open the door for the Giants.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, Jack. Definitely.
Yeah, and I like it says, I thought that the NFC East was going to be a lot better this year. Can it really hold 3 playoff teams? I don't know that Washington or the Giants have done enough to be able to do that. Now, however, you have a running back that seems to take over games. That's going to change a lot, So when I watched some of the plays in that game, he had a Derrick Henry-esque look about him, Saquon.
Yeah.
Where he was able to power through tackles. So when you said that they should have tackled him, that he powered through them. And it's just when you look at how he is built, because he's not very, he's a little stocky, but he's got his legs pumping are going to be able to get through a lot of those. He's break through a lot of those tackles. So it's going to be an interesting year, and hopefully he can remain healthy. It would be really good to see him go through a full entire season without getting hurt, because it's obviously the Giants are going to need to use him and utilize him. And he only touched the ball 15 times to get the yardage that he did. No, it's important, to not overutilize him and keep him somewhat fresh all season long.
And another factor, the Giants have another weapon, their wide receiver, Kadarius Toney, who was drafted last year. Now, it's his second year, and he was used just sparingly by Brian Daboll, and it's not supposed to be an attitude issue. There wasn't any discipline. Why? I don't understand coaches sometimes. You have these weapons, guys who could really be difference makers, and you turn them into situational players for the time being. The Jets even did that with Garrett Wilson, their rookie wide receiver from Ohio State that went 10th overall. Why didn't they just give him the position, let him play, let him be a star the way Jamar Chase was for the Bengals last year, Jalen Waddle was for the Dolphins? I mean, give him the same responsibility. Some of these coaches, they like to coach by committee. Have like a revolving door policy with players coming in, coming out. Just give your best guy the position, let him start, and let him basically show what he can do, live up to his potential.
Well, I think with a rookie head coach, you are not going to rely on rookies, especially on your first game when you're trying to set a precedent.
Yeah, and I think that Daboll, it's his first game as the head coach.
Right. So I think that you want to try to not show all of your cards right away.
It's Tony's second year. It's his second year. It's not his rookie year, Kadarius Toney. Their wide receiver. Yeah.
Right. But he didn't do much last year, right? Was he? I don't remember seeing him.
No, he didn't, but he was a rookie. I can understand that. You can understand that maybe a little more. Right, I compared him to Jamar Chase and Jalen Waddle. I confused you there.
But that being said, unfortunately, I just don't know the Giants that well because I just think they stink. But that being said, I feel that you can't show all of your cards in week 1. So you got to be able to keep stuff back. There's a playbook that nobody's going to see until week 8, even week 9, because you want to make sure to hold back as much as possible.
You have no idea how happy I am this morning. A Jet and an Eagle all loving the Giants. It's a beautiful thing.
I was just giving you some play, Mac, because we wanted to involve you early in the show.
I think what Mac would agree to this. They're overcomplicating the game of football. I like the way it was done in the past. Vince Lombardi's old pack of legendary teams. They run a power sweep. The other team would know a power sweep's coming and stop us. It's like Larry Bird would tell an opposition, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that. Tell him and then make the shot. Do exactly what he said. Football is simple. You block. You can announce to the other team if you're for example, the Tennessee Titans right before. We're going to hand it off to Derrick Henry and run right up the middle, guys. So you could line up, stack your guys up, but we're going to stack our guys up and block for him. And you see whether you could stop us, and we'll see if we could succeed.
Sure.
You know, trying to hold stuff back to like week 8, week 9, because everyone is studying your playbook, trying to figure out what you're going to do. That only works for trick plays. If you have a real trick play up your sleeve, you maybe want to save it for the end, like the Eagles did in the Super Bowl with the pass that Nick Foles caught.
The Philly special.
Right. I'm okay with a trick play, something up your sleeve. I am not going to ask Byron Williams coming on about wide receivers anymore. I mean, he knows his football, Byron. Don't misunderstand me. I'm going to ask him about every other position but wide receiver, because he told me Julio Jones couldn't get back what he had before. And Julio Jones he's like a kid again, Julio Jones. And Byron said he couldn't do it. Once you're hitting in your 30s and you're wide receiver, you got to adjust because you slowed down. No.
Well, I didn't say that he couldn't do it. I just said that for us playing 16, 17 weeks in your 30s is going to be hard to try to do in the NFL. I didn't say that he couldn't do it. I mean, he's injured right now. His hamstring's injured. They don't know if he's going to be able to go. They got all their receivers are mostly hurt at the Bucs. So we'll see what happens. It's a long season. A lot of people are judging everything by this first game, and first game is just a one game. This is one game played, so it doesn't mean anything in the NFL.
Yeah, and I looked at this week as countable preseason. This is preseason football that counts to the record, because these guys haven't really played, and you could tell everybody was rusty. Everybody. Yeah. It's when you watch that Dallas Tampa Bay game, you're like, ooh, this is you could tell like it was week 1 of preseason, that they just weren't crisp, nothing was happening, and it's
Byron, you'll agree with me. Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley sure weren't rusty, were they?
Daniel Jones, Saquon was ready to go. I tell you, he was fired up.
Wait. Daniel Jones managed the game. He played okay. He didn't have a special game. Daniel Jones didn't do anything we could rave about. He just managed the game, and he did what he had to do. He wasn't a difference maker against
he was throwing the long ball all day. I mean, he was hitting people right in stride. He was definitely a game changer yesterday.
And I think that goes with the new coach. I think that brought the excitement. I mean, he's what they did in the locker room after the game was exciting. I mean, they were like fired up about winning the game, and I think that carries over. And I just think too, that just goes to show you that the coaches and the leadership is very important.
Yep.
Well, and I can go with that, and I can understand that, but I mean, I don't remember hearing that Daniel Jones threw for like 300 yards. Didn't he have a pick?
Daniel Jones didn't. These guys are overly optimistic. I'm going to tell you, Bullock made that field goal for Tennessee at the end of the game the way he should have. What would we be talking about the Giants now?
I'm changing my hat. I'm changing my hat. I just changed my hat, so I just feel like you guys ain't getting it. You guys got to get on the same page with Matt and myself. You got to get on the same page. You guys don't see it.
Well, you're right. You're right. I don't see it. I don't see it.
Tennessee to go over to Nashville and play the way they played, I'm impressed. So I'm just telling you what I saw. I'm just telling you. I'm not just saying it, because they easily was underdogs going over there. They were 7 points, not favorite to win this game. So that was impressive.
Yes. And look at this. And now they're favored. They're favored by less than a field goal at home against Carolina.
That's good. I'm glad to see
that's an intriguing game, Carolina to Giants, because Carolina, if they're going to overachieve by a little bit and challenge for the division title, they virtually have to win Sunday, because to lose to the Browns and then the Giants, those are two teams that are beatable for them. That's not amongst the elite teams in the NFL. So,
but this goes back to what I was saying about the NFC East. Whoever won it last year is not going to win it this year.
Agreed.
I'm going to tell you the ironic thing about the NFC East. Any team, we always focus on the quarterback. And if I said to you, who's going to be the quarterback for his team next year, 1 year from now, the starter? If I say Jalen Hurts, you're going to think, probably, but you have doubt. If I say Carson Wentz of Washington, you'll say, more likely than not, I have doubt. If I say Daniel Jones, you'll say, kind of 50-50. I think so. You have doubt. The only one you'll say for sure is going to be quarterback of the team is the one team that lost, in the NFC. Dak Prescott is a definite to be the quarterback next year.
Well, you know what? And to be honest with you, I actually, because of the injury and because of the way that the beginning of their season begins, that I think that has now a little bit of doubt, because ultimately, if it takes them 8 weeks to come back from this injury, that means they have the bye week at week 10. That means you wouldn't be back until after the bye week. Their season could be over already, because if they're really going to have to depend on Zeke to carry this load. Cooper Rush looked horrible.
Year, Dak Prescott will be the Cowboy
quarterback. No, but that's that's where I'm going with this, is that if they are that bad moving forward, that it's possible that they could try to they put in the rest of their strengthen their backups, so to speak, instead of tanking. I don't want to call it tanking, but they'll strengthen their backups for the remaining part of this season and try to get a quarterback early in the draft next season.
You two guys agree with Pags, and you're going to tell Jeff Coat that the Cowboys might be so bad they might have the number 1 overall draft pick.
I don't think they're going to have the number 1 overall, but I think that they could wind up, if things start to fall properly, that they could wind up having a not a great season and go after a quarterback next year.
And what do you do with Dak Prescott's enormous contract?
You cut him.
You cut him and just pay him the money, take the big hit on the
trade him. Somebody would take him. Somebody would take him. I wouldn't be surprised. Again, this is an NFL that's what have you done for me lately? And he was hurt 2 years ago. He came back and he didn't perform well in the playoffs. He was able to do everything he needed to do in the regular season, got them the division championship, but ultimately was out in the first round of the playoffs. And it's becoming too much of a theme with the Cowboys. So ultimately, again, if you have a really bad season and you are in the middle of the season and you're in week 9 and you've only won 2 games, you may consider.
If Mac and Byron were in the Giant front office and the ownership told them, you guys in charge of making trades, don't worry about the cap. You get a call from the Cowboys today offering you Dak Prescott for Daniel Jones. You guys wouldn't take it like that. I would take it in the snap of a finger.
No, Jack.
But think about that. Well, first off, I don't understand. I think you guys are both wrong. I think that you would definitely take Dak Prescott over there. They would at the Giants. They would. I know I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't.
Matt and Byron wouldn't all stick with Daniel.
But you could see there would be other teams that would be interested. Depending on how things go in Carolina could be a suitor for Dak Prescott. I'm just saying that right now, the way that the quarterbacks carousel around, that it wouldn't be unlikely. It's actually probably more probable that if the Cowboys have a bad season, that they would be considering shopping Dak Prescott and going after a new quarterback, because with a bad season means they're going to have a brand new coach. and a new coach would want his own quarterback. He wouldn't want to have anybody's leftovers. And I think that's just opinion of mine. I can't guarantee that because I don't know who they're going to choose as a coach, and I don't know, what is going to have in store when that happens. Because now we're talking a year in the future, and I can't foresee the future that far for a team like the Cowboys.
And
But what I can see is that if they have a bad season, I put it more possible. It puts that into the hat.
Well, one of the things I was gonna say is that you got to have two good quarterbacks on your roster. It just if you really hurting yourself if you don't do that. And with the injuries and the way the defense is playing now, these quarterbacks getting hit and tagged. I mean, look how many hurries and how many hits that these quarterbacks are taking, and you just can't stay healthy. It's a long season, so I have to focus on having two good quarterbacks. And a lot of these teams teams don't have that. They're not afforded two good quarterbacks for some reason. But just look around. I just see that there's a problem with a lot of teams, and some teams gonna suffer. But the exciting things about this year is that there's a good group of quarterbacks in college coming out. So,
and you all thought I was crazy when I said Dallas would finish last in the division this year. So
I mean, injuries could cause that. A quick question for you, Byron, specifically on the Cowboys game. There, obviously, Dak gets hurt, and he pulls himself out the way that he did. Would you consider that maybe not necessarily the best move, the way he did that? Like, my first thought was, why wouldn't he just go down and at least give Cooper Rush the chance to warm up a half a second? Instead of walking himself off the field holding his forearm, if he went to a knee and did that, they would have called an injury timeout. It wasn't 2 minutes left in the game or anything like that. There was plenty of time. Would you consider that a situational, knowing your situational surroundings for Dak, instead of just walking off the field and having Cooper Rush go in there, to actually take an injury timeout instead?
Exactly. I think he should have been. He been around long enough to know that you got to give the next guy the time to warm up and then also to regather everything, because you do have to make quick adjustments, and it's very important for the next guy to come in here and have momentum going into the next play. And so that is very critical. You teach your players to, take a knee, give a little time, because that has allowed it to the offense injuries anytime that occurs out there on the football field. So him being a veteran, he wasn't even, on the right page, or even the medical staff wasn't even on the right page. He should have took a knee, no doubt.
I disagree with Byron and that philosophy that they have in football. Okay, so you're giving your quarterback a chance to warm up, get a little loose. Everyone else is cooling off while they're waiting. They're cooling off. Okay, so you lose a certain momentum that way, because you're letting go mentally for a little bit too. And football is, very mental when you're in the huddle, play to play. You're really attuned. And if you're waiting during an injury timeout, Byron, you could talk to this. You're kind of shutting off a little bit.
I'm still saying, though, Jack, that in my opinion, these teams are not doing enough to offset the defense. They don't run enough draws. They don't run enough screens. I mean, they are running predictable plays. If you look at Dallas, they are so predictable. I'm telling you, it's fundamental football sometimes that these guys are missing out on. So I'm telling you, I just think some of the little things are being oversighted because so many people are so excited about making big plays and making the long throws and things like that. You got to take what the defense give you. The main objective back in the day is on first down, you can get anywhere between 3 to 6 yards on that down. And the second down, you put yourself in a position to do a lot of things, have a lot of options. And I don't see that no more in a lot of these teams.
And you can't tell me that the wide receivers and quarterbacks during that timeout aren't, getting together and throwing the ball around, that the offensive lineman ain't doing some work, that the defense isn't doing some work. That's just what they do. So I don't buy that, everybody cools down. They don't.
They don't.
Yeah, not that long. Not that, it wasn't like such a devastating injury where they have to bring the card out and things like that, where there's an actual stoppage, you're having a TV timeout. You're getting 2 to 3 minutes to get themselves together, to come up with a play, to get the guys. You get now you have to, because all the blocking schemes got to change. All like they had a pass play figured out for Dak Prescott. Well, now they got the pass play figured out for Cooper Rush. They didn't even have a chance to really switch anything up. I bet you that they had to tell Cooper Rush what the play was, because he probably didn't even have the headset linked to him yet.
Last night's game, I mean, that's fresh on everyone's mind. When the Chargers had a 10-point lead in the third quarter, I thought they should have basically tried to stomp on the Chiefs. I thought they got a little conservative, figuring they have a really top-of-the-line defense. But this is Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs' high-powered offense. And I thought Brandon Staley, their coach, getting a little too conservative, which really isn't in his history, I thought may have cost the Chargers the game.
I agree with that. I agree. I just think, too, that you got to always put in the fans. I think sometimes when you, like the Seattle game and the last night game, the second half, I think that's where your fans come in to help you get over the top. And I think too, it's a component of having everybody involved in game type situations, which changed the momentum of the game. And I think that's what happened. I mean, the Chiefs defense stepped up and scored a touchdown. So things like that give you a whole lot of momentum. And that's what happened last night. It was a momentum game change. And also the fans got into it as well.
The 99-yard pick six, would you think that was a case of Justin Herbert just not seeing the receiver, just throwing the ball poorly? What was the reason for the pick six, you think?
I think a lot of times down there inside the 20, they have a lot of timing plays, and I think that was one of those timing plays. And when he threw the ball, he said, I didn't see that guy. And I think that's what happened in the middle of that play. Just a split second change, because, your error of mistakes down there inside the 20 is real small. So it's a small window. And I just think he just got caught up in, because the second half, when he threw that late touchdown and he came back in there with the rib injuries, he was on point. So I just think that was,
did you see that window that he threw? That window that he threw, it was a bullet, and you could tell that his ribs are hurting. He was grasping after every play, his ribs, but he threw that ball and immediately went to his ribs. He was just like, that ball was a bullet to get through. Both quarterbacks looked really sharp yesterday. That throw to Kelsey, what a small window to get it through, and just over the defender to get it in, get it to Kelsey. That was a great throw. I was more impressed with Herbert. However, the interception was exactly the way I said it. If you give him pressure up the that's where he starts to get a little flustered, and he threw that pick six, and that's proved to be the game winner, really.
And I think that guy, by him being a rookie, he was probably out of position. So I'm thinking they worked on that play a couple of times this week in practice. It's just one of those things to where he was at the right place at the right time as well.
Yeah, Jalen Watson, who intercepted the pass and ran it back 99 yards. That's a nice story, because not that long ago he was working with his mom reportedly at a Wendy's. So to see a young man, come from that position and then be on top of the mountain in the NFL, it's really heartwarming. And it's an inspiration, I guess, for a lot of players who have these dreams. But you have to be realistic. To make it to the NFL, you have to have the talent as well. It can't be an extreme long shot where you don't have the talent and you're going to make it. But if you have the talent and persevere, anything's possible, as was proven. And he'll always have that memory, 99-yard, interception return for TD.
Yeah, that's a rarity. This guy went to junior college and then he ended up in Washington. He was a 7th-round draft choice. So a lot of things, a lot of hardships in his life. And, he came out and smelled like a little rose last night, which is good. Yeah. It's a good story. But for his percentage of making it to the NFL, it's still 1%. So it's a dream that a lot of guys dream of, but, don't fulfill it.
Well, and I want to go to a different game, and I want to ask you I ask you a couple of questions on this. The 49ers Chicago Bears game. That game was played in a fishbowl. First off, have you ever had any type of elements like that you've ever played in? And secondly, at some point, I mean, obviously they played that game, but at some point, I was watching some of the videos where actually the guys were enjoying playing in it. At least the Bears were. That they're like, yeah, this is like playing back in grade school when you're just playing out in the puddles and everything.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I mean, I thought that it was a little too much. Like that. There, 3 inches of water on the field is not. You can't play in that. That's not playing conditions anymore. That's just begging for an injury.
Right.
Do you feel that the NFL should have done something about that, or at least maybe just say, hey, let's hold off for just a few minutes? I mean, they've stopped games for less or for different. But I mean, obviously Chicago wins that game, and it game's over now. But first question: have you ever played in anything like that too? Played in that?
I played in that cold game up in Chicago with the Chicago beat us and went on and won the Super Bowl. Now that was one of the coldest games ever. It was like 46 below wind chill. That was a game and a half. And I'm always reminded about the Philadelphia game with the fog came down on the field and things like that. So those are some special games. You rarely see those type games, I think. But that the way that game ran, you can definitely get players injured, and it could be a costly to some teams because if you get some key players injured, plus coming out of preseason without guys not being in shape. If you look at the injury list right now, you got guys have all kind of hamstrings pulled, groins pulled. Some guys are out for the rest of the year because they're not really prepared to play. They're not prepared to play because they're not in shape. It's a different plan. Playing half speed, 3/4 speed, and then going to full speed. It's hard to do that. Your body just it's not made like that. So that's why guys got to be in top tip shape. But yeah, I think the NFL needs to have a ruling or something on some type of game situation, especially with these fields now, because they still don't know the condition of the field with all that water. And then, but they were playing on natural grass, which is good. If they were playing on turf, you would have had some of the infield, the rubber and the things floating around, and you can't get your footing. So it would be really a hazard to play in some of those fields like that. If they're not regular.
Byron, this is football. This is what they do. They play on bad turf, and they play when it rains, and they play when
it rains. When it rains, Matt, you get that water. You can't get your footing down. I don't care what nobody says. It's just like you going out there playing on a roller, or ice skating ring, or something like that. You just can't you can't cut. And so when you're not in shape, half these guys didn't play the whole time in preseason games. That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying.
And there was so much water on that field. There was just way so much water that when they squeegeed off and they were showing waves of water going off of the field. But then at the third quarter, I mean, it was literally 3 or 4 inches of water on the field. And I understand that you got to be able to let some of that drain off. And they don't want to stop the game, but I mean, I think that was just begging for problems, and luckily they didn't have any. I mean, but
that's why I said some of these people don't understand. If you don't put a vertical drain around these football fields, you're gonna have hazards out there. I mean, it can cause for some major injuries. Some of your key players get hurt, then you looking like you're gonna be in trouble for as the team wise goes. I mean, you got to have safety somewhere plugged in for us. Because injury is a big thing in the NFL already.
Well, I heard the worst thing to plan for quarterbacks is wind, right? It's so hard to throw that tight spiral in wind. And when you kick a field goal, forget it, you can go anywhere. So that's what I heard.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're exactly right. The wind and then the cold and then the rain, they still need to figure out the safety of playing in those type of conditions because I see guys punt the ball and the ball come back. And
yeah. Oh, that happened 85 with the Bears, man. He missed the ball.
I mean, but you look at that game realistically. They had the Bears had under 220 yards of offense.
Yeah, they
You know
ran.
what I mean?
Yeah, but I'm just saying when that ball was right here, when Sean Landell, if you ready to punt the ball, and that ball went from here to there, it was amazing. You can see it on the video. I mean, it's on the replay.
Yeah.
It was.
That the wind just took the ball.
The wind just took the ball.
And without that, the Giants could have possibly won that game.
It was 0-0 up until that point. I mean, that changed the whole momentum. That's why I say certain points, and Parcells used to always talk about, it's about 5 plays that determine the outcome of the game. And that was one of the plays right there because that changed the whole momentum.
Right. So is there any games that you are looking at this week that you think is, like games of the week to watch for? Obviously, last night was a good one of those games. I like the fact that they are putting on Thursday night games specifically to, come back and actually be games worthwhile watching. Thursday night games usually have not been good up as of late. So I like the fact that they are doing that. But any games that you have your eyes on this Sunday?
I'm curious about the Dolphins. I'm trying to see if the Dolphins are for real. They play the Ravens. Of course, the Bucs are playing the Saints. I'm trying to see. Tom Brady is 0-4 against the Saints, and so I'm trying to see the Bucs go down. Bucs go to the Saints. They're on the road twice. The Bucs are. So we'll see. With all the injuries with the Bucs, with the receivers, I know even Evans is hurt. I think his lower calf or something is hurt. So it's going to be good to see what the Saints can do if they. If the Saints can do and see if the Bucs defense is for real. And then, of course, the Washington game in Detroit is interesting. I'm just trying to see some of these NFC East teams, and I'm excited about Cincinnati coming to Dallas to beat the Dallas Cowboys here in Dallas. It's nothing like having them lose 2 weeks in a row here in Dallas, and so it's going to be some good games. I mean, some teams are setting themselves up, for having a lot of momentum going into the season.
Who you liking, Jack?
Who I
Jack.
like?
Jack. What team are you?
We're talking about the Dallas Cincinnati. Yes, Cincinnati. I mean, they're coming off a loss. They should have won. I mean, they lost on their kicking game at the end, having a new long snapper, for that game. And, the holder and the timing was off on a couple of the field goal attempts that would have been normally chip shots. And it's a damaging loss in a sense because it was a division game to the Steelers there, but they should beat the Cowboys with a backup quarterback. We could talk about all the troubles that the Cowboys had Sunday, but they didn't have it on the defensive end of the ball. I mean, they played really well, and they forced Tampa Bay to go make 4 field goals, and a touchdown there. Their defense basically did their job. Tampa Bay couldn't stop Micah Parsons. So from that element, you could think that Dallas's defense maybe is going to keep them in the race until Dak Prescott gets back. So we'll see.
Who is Green Bay playing this week, guys?
They
The Bears.
The Bears.
That's going to be a game that I'm really interested in. Will Farr get ticked off at his receivers again? Are they going to be able to get it all together? Probably not. And it's going to be I think it's going to be a really, really rough year for the Packers this year, guys.
I agree.
I think
it was funny how Aaron Rodgers was looking at the receivers. It was funny because he was so pissed off about the performance of the wide receivers.
Yeah.
Well, Aaron Rodgers does have a right to feel that way. He's setting a very high bar. He's not babying those guys. Anything short of making the Super Bowl is going to leave Aaron Rodgers extremely dissatisfied. For these other guys, you get the impression they're just happy to be in the league, to have a job and to just do the best they can. And Aaron Rodgers' philosophy, I don't want your best. I want results. It's tough, but it's the reality of the situation. Aaron Rodgers is looking out for his legacy. Packers have come so close to the Super Bowl, for a number of years. and enough's enough already, And right now he is missing Devontae Adams quite a bit, But it's one game. It's one game. Let's see what goes on. I predict against the Bears, the receivers will be much more in sync. They'll win comfortably, and it won't be a news headline, at least for this week.
I don't know about that.
Do you think Devontae Adams is missing Rodgers?
No, not at all.
No, well, Derek Carr was his college quarterback, and they had a lot of success. So when you're with your old college quarterback, you don't abandon him so quickly. You really want him to succeed. I'm sure Devontae Adams, outside of himself, he's thinking, I want Derek to succeed too, because of that relationship going back to college.
Well, I know Kansas City's not missing Tyreek Hill, so I know that.
Yeah.
One thing, did you see? I don't know whether you guys heard what Sean Payton, the longtime coach of the Saints, said about Tua. He doesn't think Tua is going to be the quarterback by the end of the year for the Dolphins. Now, he might be saying it because Tua's backup, Teddy Bridgewater, filled in, for the Saints when Sean Payton was there and had a lot of success. So he really likes Teddy Bridgewater a lot, but he's predicting basically Teddy Bridgewater is going to be the Dolphins starter by the end of the year. That's kind of a bold statement. And Ryan Fitzpatrick, who quarterbacked on the Dolphins and was basically benched, for Tua, we knew it was eventually going to happen, even though it happened sooner than we thought. He doesn't think Tua is ever going to be a great quarterback because he doesn't have certain traits. He doesn't have great mobility. He doesn't have great arm strength. He has to do everything on timing exactly. So he just he didn't say, Fitzpatrick, that Tua won't be a good quarterback in the league. He doesn't feel Tua is ever going to be one of the elite quarterbacks. And that's a bold statement to talk that way about an ex-teammate of yours who you shared the quarterback room with and who you reportedly got along well with also.
Well, that just goes to show you that there are different styles of play across the league. He played in Hawaii. I mean, not a whole lot of competition over there. He came and played at the end of his career at Alabama, but he got hurt. But now he's playing on a different level. I think his style of play, the philosophy of the ball, the fly of the ball, and the timing is not going to be in the NFL standards. So I'm thinking that I'm thinking they about right. They point on him being able to be sustainable in the NFL. I think, it's showing that right now. I agree with that. I agree with what they are saying about him, and I agree that he ain't gonna be the guy that's gonna be able to carry the Dolphins where they need to go, in my opinion.
But consider this: the players on the Dolphins voted for their captains, and reportedly Tua got the most votes. So that shows that they either believe in him, they like him a great deal, and they really want him to succeed. So when you got the team kind of rallying around you, I think that's a big difference maker.
Well,
and that's good. That says a lot about what he meant to them in the practice and in the locker room, which means that hopefully he can have some momentum, but also he probably have to have some confidence. I just hope I hope he can stay healthy. I hope he can stay healthy, and if he can do that, then maybe he could be the star that they're looking for.
Well, guys, what's Sean Payton waiting for? Shouldn't he be coaching somewhere? There are openings. He could get a job pretty easily. What's he waiting for?
Dallas.
Sean Payton?
Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, I just think he's waiting on the Cowboy job.
Yeah, I mean, it's only a matter of time. Obviously, it's I think that McCarthy's going to wind up being the hard luck loser here, specifically because he's got now he doesn't have a quarterback. I don't think Cooper Rush is going to be the guy. I'm interested to see how their defense, Micah Parsons against the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, he got sacked 7 times again yesterday or last Sunday, and that tells me that they did not address the biggest glaring need that they needed this offseason was the offensive line. That they still did not address that, and because of that, they're going to wind up getting Burrows. He's going to wind up getting killed out there, and I think Micah Parsons has a day. I think that if I was to bet on who's going to be the NFC Defensive Player of the Week, that I would probably put good money on Micah Parsons this week, because I think that he's going to just be able to blow that line up 100%. I don't know that they'll win the game, but I think that they're going to wind up, he's going to wind up having a great day and maybe 3 or 4 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. I mean, I think that he's just a beast out there.
Absolutely. And then one of the things that you got to remember, the quarterback can't keep getting hit. I mean, if you stop to think about it, Burrow needs to be protected. If he protected, they will be all good everywhere. But they offensive line needs some. I mean, they weak. They are. So if they hit Kenny Burrow, if they hit Burrow this week, it's gonna be a long day for the Cincinnati Bengals, no doubt.
I don't bet on these games, but I would bet the under, because I would think Cincinnati's going to go to Joe Mixon to run the ball a lot, run away from Micah Parsons on the other side, and hope they can establish a running game and then a lot of short, quick passes, just so Micah Parsons doesn't have direct shots.
Is that what you would do, though? You'd run away from him, or you'd run towards him?
I run away
run
from
at
Micah
him.
Parsons. I'd never run towards him, Mike.
No, if you run away from him, he can change the play down. I think you want to run towards him. I think you
run at him.
Yeah.
That's you're gonna, because ultimately you want him to be able to miss and then have to turn around. Like that's so now obviously you got to get past him still, but I don't think running away. I think he's got too much speed, and I think he's got too much, again, I love using this word, NFL acumen, that he's able to read these plays and chase the ball down and still make big plays if you're running away, because he can see the field. I think if you run at him, that's where you have the biggest opportunity.
And there's other things they can do, right? They can trap him. They can throw a screen against him. They can do a lot of things to slow him down.
I agree.
I'm going to predict Ja'Marr Chase is going to have a big game this week.
Well, then he's going to be going long to Ja'Marr Chase, you would think. Also, with the injuries, we talked about Zach Prescott, T.J. Watt. He's missing like 6 games or so. And when a team loses a quarterback, I mean, it's big news. You think, can we win without him? Who's our backup? But what T.J. Watt means to that Steeler defense, he's basically the quarterback of that defense.
Absolutely. Did you see that interception he made last week? That was great. I mean, he just jumped up and caught the ball. That was a wrecking crew by itself, no doubt.
Kind of reminds me of George Martin, right? Against Denver. Kind of reminds you of that,
yeah. Exactly.
And what about Byron's guy, Kyler Murray? He struggled in week 1, and he didn't finish last season too well. Listen, I'm not down on him.
I done changed team, Jack. That was last year. I was on the car. I'm pushing the Chargers. I like the Chargers.
I'm not criticizing you for your bad pick with Arizona winning the Super Bowl last year, because for most of the year they were on track. They were looking good, but Kyler Murray finished poorly, had a terrible playoff game. Week 1 didn't play well. I mean, is there reason to, concern us? There's this talk that Kingsbury there might be on the hot seat.
Can I say this? I'm about 90% right. I'm most of the time, I'm about 90% right. I'm very seldom missing it. They just started off last year with 11-0, and I had predicted them early, like I'm predicting the Chargers. I think the Chargers are going to be the team that a lot of people are going to have to. It's going to be hard to beat the Chargers. I'm telling you, it's going to be hard to beat the Chargers.
All right, mister. I'm going to beat the Chargers. Since you can't pick them this week, and we have to get your suicide pick. I'm not sure if we got one last week, but we're going to give you the pass whether you did or you didn't. I don't know if you chose anybody last week specifically, but since you didn't, we don't really talk to you on Sunday because you're a busy man, who do you think is going to win this week for your suicide pool?
My suicide pool, I'm picking Detroit over the Commandos.
Detroit. I like that pick, actually. I think that Detroit, I think that their defense, they blitzed more frequently than everybody else last week. And I don't think that Jalen Hurts was the reason why they didn't get him so much, that he was able to get away. I think Carson Wentz is going to have that same issue, same ability.
Right.
So I like that pick from you.
Yeah, I like Detroit at home. I think you talked about Tua just a minute ago. I think the Ravens gonna have a field day on Miami. Who the Giants playing this week? I didn't know.
Carolina.
Giants play Carolina.
We 2-0. The Giants are 2-0, baby. How many more
you,
you pick?
You mentioned the Lions a little while ago, and Jared Goff, he's looking like he's kind of, I won't call him an elite quarterback, but he's looking like a competent quarterback. When the Lions first got him to trade for Stafford, we thought he'd be a stopgap. He wouldn't be a long-term answer. He might be the long-term answer for the Lions. He's not going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league, but he strikes me as someone who's going to be good enough, kind of like what Joe Flacco was with the Baltimore Ravens those years. I don't want to talk about the Joe Flacco for now. And he's going to have another weapon people forget about, Jameson Williams, who's been injured. That's the sensational receiver from Alabama. When Williams comes back late in the season and can be a major weapon going forward, this Lion team, I really think that they're on an upswing. And in the next few years, I think I wouldn't be surprised the Lions finally break through and get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, because Dan Campbell is a good coach. He's a player coach. And you have to look at player coaches in this league for sure.
I agree. Well, Byron, we appreciate you coming on today. Thank you very much. We got your pick locked in that you have the Detroit Lions. Hopefully you get to stay in because the two guys above us did not do very well in the suicide pick. They've already been killed off. They've been voted off the island. So that's of course my team won. I chose the Eagles, so I wanted to get them done and out of the way pretty quickly. Just to be able to get to move on and not have to think about them for the rest of the season. So, Byron, again, thank you very much for coming on, and we'll see you next week.
All right, you guys have a great weekend.
Take it easy,
the same. All right. Quick commercial break, and once we come back, we'll have Keith Engel from TGI Sports coming on, talking about crying that the Yankees still may not make the playoffs. So we'll be back right after these commercial messages.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Supporting the needs of our veterans. That's the goal of all of us at Team AmVets. Like Mitch, Carlos, and Kevin from our Welcome Home team that brings furniture to our vets.
We are Team AmVets.
Or Linda from our thrift stores who brings you great bargains every day.
I am Team AmVets.
And John, who picks up your thrift store donations that support California veterans programs.
I am Team AmVets.
Visit our website or a Team AmVets thrift store to donate or shop today.
Join the team!
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready. I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, get us any.
And welcome back as we also bring in Keith Engel from TGI Sports.
Good morning,
How you doing,
gentlemen.
Keith?
Good. How are you guys doing today?
Okay.
Jack's all ready for basketball season. He's all good to go.
Yeah. I'm getting tired of philosophy talking sports like weather conditions, how the turf is. I mean, I'd like to go right to the games. That's why. And the Nets we're going to have, it looks like a big season.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, big. It's at least we'll be hearing about the Nets a lot because I'm sure that the drama will abound, with that team as it normally does. But
too much to hear.
Yeah. Obviously, I haven't gotten to speak to you very much this week. But how's Joey Gallo doing?
I really have lost track of him without your input, Bags. So. I don't even know if he played this week, so I think he's probably had a tough week, is my guess.
You know what? I will fill you in real quick with the stats on how he's done. He is about the same at 162.
Okay, well, he's been consistent, so we'll give him that. He has not gone into the 150s since he got traded to LA. Good job.
That is exactly. Although I got to imagine he's not been doing so hot, but his on-base percentage dropped a little bit. It's now at 283.
Well, Joey Gallo, Aaron Hicks, Florio, the works, Gonzalez, the whole works. They needed Gotti.
Oh, you stop.
I mean, they needed Gotti this year.
Yeah. I got an alert now, Jack. When you bring up Gardy's name and I'm not here, my computer starts sending like an alarm goes off so that my head can explode, even though I'm not.
I mean, for real, he would have been out there instead of Aaron Hicks. He would have hit actually a little better. His defense would have been better. Balls wouldn't have been dropping in front of him. You could have played Judge in right field. I mean, it just bad move. Bad move.
This wouldn't have made the team any better.
Marginally, a little bit.
Bader's going to get in here in a week or so after a rehab stint, and you're going to forget all about Gardy because he's.
No, I won't, because I'll be watching Montgomery pitching well for the Cardinals, and I would have won that. Okay.
He's pitching in the National League. What can I tell you?
Well, speaking of the Yankees, it's with a heavy heart that Keith has definitely got the card. He's got the card. So, I just said with a heavy heart.
I didn't pander, Jack. I did not pander to get this card back.
I'm waiting. I'm seeing on the card. I'm kind of negotiating. I mean, Mac told me I have to accept his terms if I want my Yankee card to just be a fan. I'm going to tell you, if the Mets win the World Series, I mean, are people going to be lining up for their Yankee cards to display them? I don't know. I mean, the Mets win the World Series and they welcome me aboard to be part of their fan base, you never know. I mean, but I'll stay loyal to the Yankees still.
Even when I'm bashing my team, all I'm doing is speaking the truth. That's all I'm doing. I'm still rooting for them to win. I think I said early in the year when I said they wouldn't do well, I was rooting for myself to be wrong. And they're going to they're going to win the division now. Sorry, Bags. They're not going to blow this.
What about the young crop of players the Yankees are bringing up? Did they show you the type of potential that they're going to be with the Yankees long term?
I don't think I've seen enough to make that determination, really. I mean, I guess the guy we've seen the most of is Cabrera, which he's played everywhere. I like his versatility. He's played everywhere in the field, basically. And I think he might be that Marwin Gonzalez type of guy next year for the Yankees. A better version of that, hopefully.
Well, he's good defensively. He doesn't hit, though.
Yeah, and maybe you see one of the kids next year at shortstop. Peraza has had a couple of chances this year. He hasn't really set the world on fire in the little bit of chances that he's got. But I think the Yankees might have done that, too, to maybe light a fire under Kiner Falefa a little bit as well. And he's played much better the last couple of weeks.
Well, Kiner Falefa, I don't think it's going to be there long term.
No, definitely not.
Because Volpe is going to come up at some point. But the big question is with Gleyber Torres. I get the feeling he's the type of player the Yankees are not going to want to move on from. And, if they're going to have Peraza, Volpe, Gleyber Torres, it kind of becomes a little crowded. Now, you could say they'll move on from Donaldson, but DJ LeMayo is going to be – he has 4 years left on his contract after this one at $15 million a year. So they're not going to be able to trade him or move on. So DJ is going to be there. So I don't know. Maybe they move on from Anthony Rizzo after next year, and DJ's their first baseman. There's different combinations.
And Jack Pags is really loving this right now.
Yeah, Pags is like writing a letter to somebody over there.
Yeah, exactly. I was texting. I have a special guest that's trying to get on, so I wanted to make sure that he knew that because obviously I have so much to add here that the Yankees are going to just be knocked out in the second round of the playoffs since they don't have to play in the first round.
Progress in a way. Second
well,
round.
yeah, because they don't have to play in the first round of the playoffs.
Oh.
So they'll get the bye.
A good point. I think they'll have trouble with the Astros still. I'm not sold they can get past the Astros still. Don't take my card away, Mac. I'm only being honest here. They got to show me they can beat the Astros.
No one's beating the Toronto Blue Jays when all is said and done.
No, except any team that plays against them.
The Blue Jays.
The Astros are a really good team.
Astros are very good. They got a 7-game lead in that best record in the American League. They're only a couple of games behind the Dodgers, I think. Now.
Let me ask you this: people are saying, well, if Judge leaves the Yankees, they're going to fall apart. He's carried them, but the Astros lost Carlos Correa. Okay. And that before that, they lost George Springer, staples of their team, yet the Astros continue to be extremely successful.
Well, they had a lot of guys in that farm system to bring up to replace them, and I'm not sure the Yankees have those guys that are ready to do that just yet. We'll find out potentially if Judge has to go. And he may very well win a Triple Crown here before this is all said and done, and the price goes up every day.
Well, I don't know, Mac, would you raise your price to Judge from $30.5 million now? What would you do in your season?
Yeah, definitely. I go $40 million for him.
You give him $40 million. So had you given him 36, 37 during spring training, he would have jumped on the deal. You could have signed him 8 years at $37 million a year. He would have taken it, and you would have had him.
Yep.
That's what I was trying to say all along. Now they're offering him. He actually might not take the bigger offer.
And there in Judge card, I'd give it back to Mac now.
But I wouldn't give him a 10-year deal. I don't care what anyone says. I wouldn't get carried away on a 10-year.
No. In fact, I would go the other way. I would actually try to do it like a 5-year or a 6-year deal and give him like $250 million.
What is with Zach Wheeler's deal? Wait. Let's talk Philly. Zach Wheeler has 2 years left on his deal. I think after this, is this his 3rd year with the Phillies? He signed a 5-year deal. So the Phillies.
Yes, it is his third year because he started in the shortened season.
So
that
he's
was.
It's safe to say he's the Philly ace now. So if
well, I mean, it's still like a 1-1A type thing. I have Nola. Nola's actually pitched fairly well this season, and he hasn't had that September swoon that has been like his calling card. So as of right now, I would still consider that. Like 1-1A, like you could probably interchange the both of them. Ultimately, what I'm actually surprised about is the back end of our bullpen, the back end of our starting rotation pitching very well. Barry Falter and Gibson both pitching pretty well, as of late. And it's Syndergaard that's the question mark. You know what I mean? Syndergaard loves to give up home runs and hits.
Is he a free agent at the end of the season?
Noah Syndergaard?
Yeah, he might be. Didn't he?
Yes, he is.
Yeah,
he is. This was a rental.
Right.
And the way and everything that he has done tells me that he is dying to get back with the Mets. He wants to be back in New York. He won't pitch against that team. He's like, I feel like everything that says
pitch against him. You tell him you slot him into pitch against him. You tell me he's refusing.
Yep.
That's interesting.
He did it twice. He did it twice. Now we don't play the Mets again this year, but he did it twice. He did it once with I guess he was with San Francisco, and then once with us.
So basically, Syndergaard is validating what Keith Hernandez said, about the Phillies, their brand of play, them being disorganized.
I don't think one thing has anything to do with the other. I think one has to do with you're talking about Keith Hernandez talking about defense, and we're talking about Noah Syndergaard afraid to pitch against his own team. That one thing has nothing to do with the other there, Jack.
Wait. When you come back and you're seeing your old friends, you want them to see you in a good light. Syndergaard doesn't want to go to Citi Field and the fans there see the sloppy brand of baseball the Phillies play. It probably embarrasses them to an extent because
I think the embarrassing part is you actually bringing this up in conversation. That's the embarrassing part, Jack.
Syndergaard who refuses to pitch against the Mets. He just tells them, no, I don't feel like pitching against them because I want to be with them next year.
Hey, listen, no worries, Jack. I'm with you 100%. So.
Well, it's not going to matter. You guys could have Noah Syndergaard back up in the Mets. We're going to wind up taking DeGrom.
That would be bad. That would be a bad trade.
I won't let that happen.
I tell you, if they go after Judge, it's going to absolutely happen. I would expect that they will spend the money on DeGrom. I would spend the money. I would absolutely I would give him a 3-year or 4-year, $50 million a year contract. I think he's absolutely worth it.
I don't think it's a New York situation for the Mets, though. Steve Cohen will spend whatever he needs to spend.
Right, but he's still got to make. It's still got to make sense. This is what Jack said. Hey, he'll blow $1 billion to try to win a World Series. He won't blow $1 billion to try to win a World Series. He may try to, like, if he goes after Judge and his focus is elsewhere. And who knows? I don't know what DeGrom's thought process is. He may want to be a Met for the rest of his life. He may decide that, you know what? I've done it here. We didn't go anywhere. I like the Phillies. I may want to go there. I like the Dodgers. I may want to go there. He could go anywhere he wants. All he's got to do is say, hey, do you guys want me? And I'm sure somebody's going to say, yeah, can we afford you, though? And that's the game.
As you said, Cohen, Steve Cohen is a businessman. He's not a guy that just goes out there and throws money away. He wants to make money. He doesn't. That's what that's what he does. I mean, he's a businessman. So I agree.
He wants to win. Did you see the contracts he threw around this last? Well, since he took over the team, go back to Lindor and some of the and Scherzer, and the contracts he's thrown around are pretty hefty.
Yeah,
but Lindor has make money, and he's not going to lose money owning the Mets, by the way, unless you just.
Lindor has played excellent though. He's fielding great. He's
first year, but 10-year contract. Everyone plays well in the beginning of the contract. They don't fall apart. They fall apart the second half of the contract.
I think
Everyone
Lindor's
plays
played very
well.
well, especially this year. And it's not about how well they played. I'm saying he's willing to spend the money to win. He wants
Right,
to win.
but he's also not going to just blow money. Like if he's going to spend the money on Aaron Judge, he's already spent a ton of money, and who knows, he may not want Aaron Judge. You know what I mean? And that may be a whole different thought process on that
bigger
too.
priority for the Mets than Aaron Judge is.
Well, you would think, but I can't. We can't. We are only hypothesizing.
Yeah.
We can't be for certain exactly how things are going to go. DeGrom goes to free agency, which is what's happening, that he is going to be able to entertain offers. And I got to imagine that there are going to be some good offers that come across his table. And then at that point, Cone is going to have to figure out whether he wants to spend that money there or if he wants to go outside. And I guess the playoffs are going to make a big difference here. That's what's going to really determine how he goes. Because if they don't hit the ball in the playoffs, that's going to be a big problem.
We talk about one stupid owner all the time, and DeGrom is a guy. You talk about years for Judge. I'm giving him 10 years before I'm giving DeGrom anything more than 2.
Oh, no, Keith. You're going to have to give DeGrom.
Everybody talks about Judge being hurt. When DeGrom has not pitched a full season.
Yeah, no. DeGrom is going to be given something like
and you'd
a
be crazy.
5-year deal by Steve Cohen, $45 million a year for 5 years.
I'm not saying he's not going to get it. I'm telling you, you worry about guys on the back end of their contracts. I'd worry about this guy in the front end of his contract. He can't stay healthy.
It's more of a concern with DeGrom than it was with Judge, but this is
absolutely
compared to a position player. But if DeGrom does stay healthy, he's going to be the closest thing to Sandy Koufax, we've seen.
So at 30, a 5-year deal, he would be 39. If he signs there, he's going to be 35 next year in June.
And
he has 2 years left on his contract now.
Does he?
A total of $63 million. He has 2 years left on his contract now. The Mets, at the very least, he's opting out. He's going to look at a 4-year deal. Someone is going to give him a lucrative 4-year deal. Maybe it's the Dodgers. Maybe it's the Giants who have some money to spend if they can't sign Judge. I mean, we don't know who it might be. It might be the Angels, but their owner, Artie Moreno, is exiting. But someone out there is going to offer him a few years.
If he goes in, he'll blow his arm out.
Maybe it's the Red Sox who deliver Thunderbolt, and they give this guy, they say with DeGrom, we're going to give you $180 million for 4 years. I mean, the Mets would match that. But you don't know what a team might do, and a team might understand they've got to go to 5 years to get DeGrom to outbid someone else.
So he has 2 years left on his contract with the opt-out at the end of this year. He's slated to make $30 million next year, $32 million in 24. So ultimately, if he was to opt out and then re-sign, you're going to have to get into the 45 to 50 range, which is where I would expect that he's going to go. And I would absolutely re-sign him for 4 or 5 years. I would like I said, I'd consider a 4-year, $200 million contract. I think that out of all the pitchers in Major League Baseball right now, that he's probably worth it, even only pitching 25 to 30 games a year.
30 games would be a ton for him. He pitches 15.
Yeah, but you have to see how he holds up the rest of this season. If he holds up and he's elite the rest of this season, that's enough of a body of work to at least show the potential of having durability going forward. If he gets injured again before the season's over, now you have a major predicament. You're not sure what to do. You want to sign him, but how much are you willing to really invest in the guy year-wise? Then it's a problem.
The team that signs him is going to have they're gambling no matter what they do with this guy.
Well, we don't know how the rest of the season's playing out. If DeGrom leads the Mets to the World Series, he's a World Series MVP, then they got to give him the moon at that point.
Eight starts this year, by the way. 8 starts, 15 last year, 12 in the COVID year.
Keith, you're making the same mistake Mac and Doc made with Aaron Judge.
No, I'm not.
Injuries before the year in the past. You got to look what he could give you going forward.
How old is he?
34.
Again, the trend now is that he's going to be hurt. The trend was Judge was not that he was going to get hurt.
Justin Verlander. Tell me that.
Verlander's 38, I think.
38, and Justin Verlander is throwing as well as he ever has now.
So Scherzer's 39.
And Scherzer the same way. So DeGrom's contract would end when he was 39. You're not taking him above that. And Scherzer has 2 more years left on his deal with the Mets. I think he can opt out,
Scherzer's never had the injury history that DeGrom's got, by the way. Just
no,
saying.
but they're not going to – you don't have to sign DeGrom today. It's after the season.
So all right, but I'm gonna talk to you about that since we're talking about DeGrom here, and we're talking about it. And so in 2014, he pitched in 22 games. That was his rookie season, obviously. 2015, He pitched 30. 2016, he got hurt for a couple of games, but pitched 24. 17, 31, 18, 32, 19, 32, 20, 12. But that was the short season, and then last year 15 games. This year 8. So only the last 2 seasons has he gotten hurt. Other than that, he has been able to really pitch throughout the entire season. Now, I understand he's 34 years old now, and he's only going to get older. It's not going to do that, but it's if you could get 20 some games out of him, you're gonna do real well. And it's not those games that you care about; it's the playoffs.
I get that, but you got to get to the playoffs first of all. Right. And if you invest this kind of money in this guy, you're going to hurt yourself somewhere else. And if he can't pitch more than 20 games, he's going to handicap the team that signs him. Unless it's in October and he's healthy, then I get it. Then it's worth a gamble. But again,
I think he's still the best pitcher in the league right now.
I agree. When he pitches, he's the best pitcher in the league, without a doubt.
I heard a debate the other day. They were comparing DeGrom to Garrett Cole. Who's a better pitcher for who? Who would you rather have? And the feeling was, of course, DeGrom is better than Garrett Cole. But Garrett Cole, if nothing else, he takes the mound all the time. All the time. You can count on him to take the mound. And he's been a very good pitcher for the Yankees. Maybe not a great pitcher.
Serious? Are you
very
serious?
good on balance.
Cole gives up a home run all the time when he comes into the game. His balls are straight. He has no legitimate changeup. The guy is terrible, Jack. The guy is
terrible.
Yeah, I'm not going to let Keith. I'm turning this out. Keith, I'm turning this over to you. I'm not responding to Matt at all. You handle it.
You can tell me Garrett Cole is not DeGrom, and I will agree with you 100%. But to sit there and say Garrett Cole is terrible is so far off the mark. I don't even know where to start.
What do you call somebody who goes on a mound and gives up a home run every time he comes up?
Almost every major league pitcher in the game. How about that? I mean,
the guy stinks. The guy stinks. He shouldn't be in baseball. The guy is so bad.
All right. Just so that we're on that same page. He's given up only 27 home runs this year.
That's not.
Wait. Matt, wait a second, Mac. You would just release Garrett Cole. What happens if Garrett Cole is willing to take a cut and pay half a salary? You could slash, but you could still cut him for young talent. Would you cut Garrett Cole still?
No, I mean, that would be fine with me. I mean, that's okay if he's going to take a cut and pay and that. But
the union wouldn't allow that ever, and not that he would do it anyway.
27 home runs this year, 24 home runs last year. Playing in Yankee Stadium, which is one of the worst home run ballparks for pitchers in the league, that is not horrendous.
What was it? Was it like 18% of home runs in Yankee Stadium aren't home runs in every other ballpark?
But getting back to what Keith said, make believe you're the Philadelphia Phillies, and you can just have one of these two going forward next year, DeGrom or Garrett Cole. You take DeGrom if you're the Phillies, but you know Garrett Cole is going to take the mound for you
Exactly.
all the time. You know he'll be out there, and DeGrom is a question mark, but you still take DeGrom based on the potential.
And this guy who's terrible has finished in the top 5 in the Cy Young Award voting the last 4 years.
Yeah, good.
But
I mean, let's see. He's got a 3.3 ERA. He's got 228 strikeouts. I mean, the guy is well in the grand scheme of things.
He's one of the better pitchers in baseball. He's not as good as DeGrom. He's not as good as Scherzer, but he's one of the better pitchers in baseball.
Oh my God! What book are you reading? What stats are you looking at? The dude.
I watch the games. And I look at the numbers.
So wait. Let me hypothetically to you, Matt.
Taking the mound means something to me too. If a guy can't take the mound, I don't care how good he is. He doesn't help my team.
Not if he gives up a home run every time he takes the mound.
Well, you can't when you're not pitching, so that's pretty good.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest. If I had the opportunity to get Garrett Cole, I probably would, just because, like I said, I would love to have him as my third pitcher. You know what I mean? I mean, really. I mean, think about it. I don't care where he's in the top 3, whether he's number 1, 2, or 3. I wouldn't care.
Exactly.
You put him with Wheeler and
again,
thank you.
If it's a choice between DeGrom or Cole, and you tell me DeGrom's going to pitch more often than he doesn't, then I'll tell you DeGrom's a better. I'd take DeGrom.
Okay, I want to hear Mac's reaction on this. We're talking about Garrett Cole since we're talking about Yankee pitchers. What are the Yankees to do with Adonis Chapman? I mean, he's an intriguing situation. The Yankee bullpen, they don't really have a closer per se, because as far as I'm concerned, Clay Holmes lost that position. You know, he pitched great up to the All-Star break and then it's faulted after. The Yankees don't have a true closer there. They're closing by committee. But if Chapman can somehow come back and be his old self, he's obviously the closer and a feared one at that. But he's so darn inconsistent. What's the deal with Chapman, Mac, in your opinion?
Oh, they're going to get rid of him. They're definitely going to get rid of him.
Oh, without a doubt. And I don't know that it'll be a closer. Mac, you think he's a closer come playoff time? I don't think. I think they'll continue to.
No.
I think they'll go by matchups, and it won't be one guy in the 9th inning. I don't think for the Yankees going forward.
Listen, that's a train wreck. I don't pitch him at all.
Well, we're on the same.
A reliever could have a resurgence. Look at Edwin Diaz this year. He was outstanding with Seattle and terrible with the Mets for a while, and now he's elite.
Well, and he's also 35 years old too, Chapman. So I'm not sure that it's, I wouldn't be surprised if they get rid of him in the process of this. Another team will pick him up, but I think that he's now a 6th or a 7th inning guy. You can't really utilize him in the closer's role. He just doesn't have it anymore. He lost velocity and things like that. So it's not the same. And if you want, you could have my Yankee card.
You lost. I'm working on losing mine again today.
Don't you have a Phillies card or something, Pags, over there that we could get a hold of?
Listen, you can't take away my Phillies card no matter how hard you try. So I am, you may be able, just slightly may be able to take away my Flyers card just because I've been very critical of them. But short of that, I doubt that you could take any Philly card away from me.
Philly fans are starting to lose their passion. I could tell. They still have it for the Eagles. But it started to slip with the Sixers and the Phillies. It's not quite as strong, I guess, as it once was. I mean, but it remains with the Eagles. So.
Spoken like somebody who lives in New York and has no idea about Philadelphia. Obviously, Philadelphia is already, I've been seeing everywhere the hunt for Red October. We are getting excited for playoff baseball in Philadelphia. It's going to be fun to see how this all turns out, and especially we're not sure who we're going to wind up even going up against because it's only a 1-game differential between the Mets and the Braves, and the Braves actually hold 2 games in hand. So if they were to win both of those games, it would actually be a virtual tie, or it would be a tie for the division. So And I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how that all works, but if they do tie for the division, I believe they do have a game playoff. They do not go to, hey, well, this guy beat you guys. This team beat this team by 9-8. So they are the ones that win the division. I don't think it goes that way.
Maybe, Keith, do you know the answer on that? If they're tied, I mean, I can't see there being a playoff or division title unless a bye is at stake. That's the only way I could see it happening.
Well, it would be a bye because St. Louis isn't going to catch either one of them.
No, but there must be some type of tiebreaker in there, something I would think.
There probably is. In the past, they have played off these games, but
it's a little different now, I think.
See if I can find something quick.
Because that's what's going to make a really big deal. If by chance, and I almost want them to tie to play that playoff game because at that point, would you, like I said, if you're the Mets, would you play Scherzer? Would you pitch Scherzer? Would you pitch DeGrom in that game and possibly lose them?
Yes.
And same thing with
listen, you're not going to pitch both. Either DeGrom or Scherzer is going to be available, but it's best of 3 if you don't get the bye. So even if you pitch hypothetically a Scherzer or DeGrom the last game of the season, I would think they would be available for game 3 of the playoffs, a final decisive game if needed. So
there would be no playoff game, by the way, if they tie. Everything is going to be determined by tiebreakers.
Yeah, that's what I thought, Pags. Yeah.
Head-to-head is number 1. Interdivision record is second.
Yeah.
So head-to-head would be number 1.
Correct.
And who's leading right now between the Mets and the Braves?
It's a good question. Let's. I
think
can find that real quick too.
I think the Mets got a small lead.
I think they do too. Oh crap! They don't tell me. That's a division record. Right. Yeah, listen, I do think the Mets have maybe a game or 2 in hand. And I missed that. That's another thing I hate about Major League Baseball. Now we don't even get those. One of the greatest games as a Yankee fan was that Red Sox Yankee 1-game playoff in Fenway in 1978. You're never going to see that stuff again because of the way they format these playoffs, and we don't have time to play that type of game anymore. So,
I mean, I kind of wonder with these playoffs, expanding the playoffs, is that good? Is it bad? I could understand the playoff system in the dark ages. We had the American League against the National League, 10 teams in each league. Only the first place team, would go to the World Series, point blank. They wouldn't even have a playoffs. We just finish first amongst the 10 teams. But I think it's better the way they do it now. It gives teams more hope. And if you look at the wild card teams, for the most part, they're good teams. I mean, most of the time. But
a lot of them win the World Series, so they've got to be good teams.
It wasn't fair last year. The Atlanta Braves winning the World Series, with 88 wins, and the Giants had 107. The Dodgers have 106. But those are the rules. I mean,
it's all about who gets hot in the end, right?
That's right.
It doesn't matter about the record.
Right now, the Mets, just so that you know, the Mets actually have a 9-7 lead.
There you go.
Over the Braves. They do have the final series of the both of them. They end with each other. So it's a 3-game series. So all
Atlanta
would have to do is win
one game, and then
and then have the better record, obviously.
And then have the same record.
They can have the same record, but that's
right,
correct.
Right.
They have to at least be able to tie.
That's a nice little cushion for the Mets there. I mean, it might not seem like much.
Well, no, because ultimately, like I said, the Braves have 2 games in hand, so they have to win both of those games. If they lose one of those games, that's already changes it to a game out or a half a game out, and ultimately, like I said, the Braves have to sweep that final series to be able to overcome, and that's tough to do. Even against the Mets, although the Cubs did it.
They did. Yeah, I give the credit to these teams that are way out of it and they're getting up to play now. A lot of teams just fold up to tenths, but when the team in the Cubs position comes and plays, and that says something about their manager maybe too. It might help him keep his job there.
Yeah.
When you're still playing hard in September, 30 games out of place.
And they're still playing for contracts, right? They're still playing to keep the place on the team. So,
the Cubs had a few of those guys too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, it's going to be interesting. Let's go talk about the other team that stinks for you, the New England Patriots.
Well, this one really does stink right now.
So obviously, I'm sure you watched the game probably more than everybody else here did, because I didn't see not one play of that game.
Yeah.
And Tua beat us.
I didn't miss a single. Tua didn't play that well, by the way. He was good. The Miami Dolphins were efficient. I'm still not sure how good they are. Right now, I know my team is in disarray. The defense played pretty well. They only gave up 13 points. One of them was on that a long touchdown right near halftime to Waddle, but they had a busted coverage and bad tackling by Bentley and Duggar. And then the other points were scored on a strip sack of Jones. But the defense played pretty well, I thought, for the most part. They shut down the Dolphin running game, which is usually one of their strengths. But offensively, it was a mess. It was a mess. They couldn't run the football. Then they got behind a little. Actually, they ran the football a little bit early with Harris. Stevenson wasn't very good. But once they fell behind, they kind of gave up on the running game and started throwing the ball. And they didn't protect Jones well, and he didn't have places to go with the ball. Kendrick Bourne was not part of the offense until late in the game. He's in somebody's doghouse. He only had 2 touches the entire day. One of them was for 41 yards. And he was a big part of this offense at the end of last year. And in fact, this week, Robert Kraft said whoever's doghouse he's in, he better be out this week because he wants to see him a bigger part of this offense because he's very important. They don't have a lot of playmakers here, and he is one of them.
And Belichick is known for that, right? He did that to your cornerback last year in the playoffs. I mean,
yeah, the talk is it's not necessarily Belichick; it's more Patricia and Bourne and Patricia are not like on the same page right now and haven't been for a little bit.
Patricia and who?
Kendrick Bourne, the wide receiver. So, that's not a good situation. They had a really good drive to open the game, and then they went for the 50-50 ball, which in the end zone at the 22-yard line on the first drive of the game. They got Devontae Parker just for that play, and he can't even go up and prevent the interception. So it wasn't a great throw, and but he's got to at least knock that ball down, and he doesn't. And then from there on, it's pretty bad. So I knew that September was going to be tough for this team. There were a couple of decent signs, I guess, but Mac Jones came out of the game hurt too, had to have x-rays on his back. I think he'll be playing this week. He didn't miss any practice due to that. He did miss a day with some illness, but it supposedly wasn't related to the back injury. But this team's got to, right the ship here pretty quick. They get a break in Pittsburgh this week because TJ Watt's out, which will help them. And I think the defense, I think this will be a low-scoring affair. And both of these teams, I think, are searching for an identity on offense. And, it might take only, 14 or 17 points to win this game Sunday.
This is the first time, it's funny. This is the first time in 19 years that these two teams are going to play against each other without a guy named Roethlisberger or Brady.
Right.
The quarterback.
That is a good point.
So it's a much different game than it was. And you're right. I thought Najee Harris is got battling an injury a little bit, so you want to get him at probably like 80% rather than 100%. TJ Watt's a big loss for them. The guy that they have filling in has been serviceable, but he went as an undrafted free agent. He just signed this year with Pittsburgh. So
but you don't have to account for him the way you got to account for Watt, right? Which frees the other guys to do things, right? So
correct. And it looks like McCourty's actually been doing pretty well. That he actually had a pretty good game last week.
But Devin McCourty's been a staple in that defense for a long time. He's a solid player. If you're talking about Devin McCourty,
That's right. 35 years old, he's still playing pretty good. So
yeah, there's some question about whether he was going to come back this year. Devin McCourty's a Hall of Famer in my mind. I think you'll find that out after he retires. Plus, he's one of the good guys in the league. He's always up for the Walter Payton Award, it seems, and he's been a big part of this team. And he's helping those young guys because they're really young on the corners. And Devin McCourty's played a lot of corner. In fact, didn't play it well early in his career. He didn't get really good till they moved into safety. But he's been a good influence on those young kids in that backfield, which they made some progress this week. I'll give them that. So there was a lot of concern about the corners, but they're playing better. This is going to be an ugly football game, I think, Sunday. But I will watch every play, just like I watch every play of that ugly game last week.
Right.
So,
right. Well, and what did I see? That the Patriots are actually favored in this game?
They are, which is I have no idea. They're like a 2.5 point favorite. At least they were the other day on the road.
I have it at 1.5 now.
Okay, so it's dropped maybe a little bit, or could be a different sports book, but that is a little shocking on the road that they'd be favored in this game.
Yeah, I guess they just don't trust the offense from Pittsburgh, and they figure that Belichick's going to be able to scheme well enough to be able to hold Pittsburgh down enough. I agree. The over-under in this game is 43.5, and I think that an under is probably the good play.
Yeah, I think so too. And that Pittsburgh defense, though, they look totally different in that Cincinnati game. I was watching that on another TV. I was watching the Patriot game because I had Cincinnati in a survivor pool, so that's over.
Oops.
But Cincinnati played their offense came alive a little bit after Watt got hurt. They played much better. But Cincinnati just shot themselves in the foot all day long. 5 turnovers, 7 sacks. Obviously you can attribute some of that to the Pittsburgh defense, but the Bengals were not very good last week at all.
Well, not only that, but then Joe Burrow still kept them in it enough to be able to bring them to overtime.
Yeah.
So even after all that.
Yeah, because they played better after Watt went out. That's what was one of the big points of them being able to come back. And they missed an extra point. The kicking in the league last week, I don't know what was going on with the kicking, but good God, it was atrocious. And this is a good example. The guy who was supposed to be the best kicker in the league misses an extra point with no time left to send the game to overtime.
Well, reportedly, he had a new holder, a new snapper, and all that talk.
Well, not only that, wasn't it like that? That was the snap where he actually had to stand up. The holder had to stand up to get that snap to try to get it down, and they just couldn't get it down, and laces were in, and
this is why special teams are important, and teams overlook them. Special teams are very important, and there was a lot of bad special teams play last week for sure.
There's a lot of good punters this year. I mean, they got some strong legs. They're driving the ball. They're giving the other team bad field position. Huge part of special teams.
Yeah, Bailey might have been the Patriots MVP last week because he had a couple of kicks inside the 10 and one at the 10, I think. So he might have been their best. He might have been their best player last week. Kept keeping them in the game as much as he did.
No, you made a remark a little while ago, Keith, that Robert Kraft said something about one of the players. When an owner starts, I don't want to use the word target a player, gives his attention to a specific player who's not the star of the team, that tells me the owner is very involved. I'm not saying owners shouldn't be very involved with the team, but does that kind of filter down to Belichick? Shouldn't that be a Belichick thing, talking a little more with the press?
Yes.
You get the feeling Robert Kraft might not be overly happy with Belichick if things don't go well, because it's always been my impression he's tolerated Belichick because Belichick has been so wildly successful. He's realized what he had in Belichick as a coach. And it's a little less their personal relationship. It's more of a business relationship. But if the business relationship isn't quite succeeding, meaning the 1-loss record, I get the feeling that Belichick isn't a lock to be there going forward next year.
All right. Say they let go of Belichick. You get a job anywhere, Jack.
Oh, no, but that's not the point. He absolutely would get a job elsewhere.
He's not going to get let go. We've had this conversation. Robert Kraft's too smart to let him go. The public relations backlash would be awful for him. But at the same time, you're right. And I should have prefaced my comment about Kraft speaking up. That's very un-Robert Kraft-like.
Yeah.
To come out in public and make a comment about something involving the way the team is run. And that's not what he normally does. And this is twice now in a few months. He did it before the draft as well, if you remember. Yeah. He made a comment that, we might want to consider having a good draft here because we haven't been very good in that area in recent years. And there's some data about how good that was. So but at the same time, even if he speaks up and seems more critical of the team and Belichick by extension, I don't think there'll come a point he will ever fire Bill Belichick. Now they may come to some mutual agreement where Belichick will want to spend more time with his family, but I don't think he'll come out and out fire him because the public outcry would be deafening in New England. He's smarter than that.
I believe that, and I can't imagine that. Like I said, coaches like that, you have to kind of let them make the decision on when they're going.
Wait. But you mentioned, Keith, there'd be a big outcry in New England. Is Belichick that loved in New England where there would really be a major outcry? If
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they may not love him as a person. Who cares? And Bill Parcells wasn't a person. But,
do they feel about Belichick the same way the Yankee fans felt about Joe Torre during the time he managed the Yankees? As a way of
I would say professionally and what happens on the field, yes, they do. And there would be, if he were to get fired mid-season or at the end of the season or at any point, I think there would be great backlash from
a 5-12 record at the end of the season. Would there be backlash?
Well, again, people wouldn't be happy, but yes, again, it would get less. It would get less if they had multiple seasons that were, 5 wins, 6 wins. Yeah. But you're never going to see him get outright fired. It'll be a conversation where, something happens behind closed doors and he decides to spend more time with his family, and that'll be that.
What happens if he wants to coach? You're assuming, he's going to take a job in the front office. They'll work it out, but Belichick might want to coach elsewhere.
I don't think he'll ever coach elsewhere. He's 70 years old. He's not going.
He's a lot, some guys are coaching lifers. Look at one of Pax's favorite managers, Tony La Russa. He's 77, 78?
Yeah.
And should have retired 8 years ago.
Right.
Joe Biden, our president, is close to 80 years old.
Let's not go there. Jesus. Good guy, please.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to leave that one just go right over my head. So,
please.
I mean,